Hi, folks. My name is Brian Johnson, and welcome again to Freedom to be Free. The liberty of your soul, the liberty of your mind, the liberty of your heart to experience life freely. And with that in mind, we're here at Urban Legend in Hamilton, New Jersey, and we want to thank you for joining us again, for coming along and just being part of this conversation. And we invite you, when you see this recording, to share your comments. We want to learn from you, as hopefully you're learning maybe something from us, or just getting stimulated on topics or things that just might be on your mind, or things maybe you haven't thought about at all. For me, this week, I had a couple of interesting thoughts. My book is coming out soon. It's The Primary Ambition. And one of the chapters in The Primary Ambition has to do with the eternal nature of our youth. It's the eternal nature of our youth being based on obedience. And I don't know whether we ever think about it that way, but I kind of did. And I realized that as a child of God, as a child of the all creation, and however you perceive God in yourself, there are traditions that tell us about what God is, and they inform us and instruct us in ways to go. And of course, that's just beautifully rich. And it's the reason why I'm even here today. As a soul that's been saved by Christ and following the traditions of the Judeo-Christian religious path, it has arrived me here. And now I have been, because of my search, finding broader perspectives for myself that satisfy my own soul's hunger. And I certainly don't have any criticisms whatsoever for anyone's path. My bottom line, however, is to understand the common denominator, is my understanding of the fact that the common denominator for me is love. And if I see love in your actions, I know you're connected to our Creator in the proper way. My personal judgment. And I do that for myself. I recognize that I am somewhat absent from the immaculate essence of my childlike nature, walking in the obedience of God. If I don't have love, if love is absent from me, I have nothing. And the scriptures say that in Judeo-Christian tradition, in chapter 13, 1 Corinthians, everybody knows it, or most people do. You have to have love in your soul, in your system, love in your thinking, love in your emotions, love in your actions. And isn't that just a beautiful way to be? It has a way of stabilizing or expanding our youthful natures. In love, there's a buoyancy. And in that buoyancy, there's just richness beyond our capacities to understand. But we do indeed understand, because we even go beyond, at least in our levels of understanding, and these levels are perpetual and they are expansive. Once we have a certain level of knowledge, we find out that there's more knowledge to acquire. But that is the very piece of our understanding. We are always on the journey for learning. So I would suggest that we never stay in a box, first of all. Don't have our consciousnesses locked in some kind of box where we figure that's it, and we can't really perceive or conceive of God in a way that enhances our understanding and learning, that gives us room to expand from the knowledge that we've acquired thus far. And isn't that just the way of children at all times? And once we open ourselves up to that we find that there's a humility in that position. There's a beauty of youthfulness that lights up within us. It is a glow. It is a joy. It is the oxymoron of a maturity about our youthfulness. And in that buoyancy, in the ability and the desire to learn more, that in and of itself is a humility, that is an obedience. All of these words, you feel them connected in terms of our journey, that leads us further and further, deeper and deeper into the greater expanses of love. And we get to understand ourselves on levels beyond our current understanding now. And we get to understand our communities beyond our current learning now. So it's just a beautiful experience of learning, a beautiful experience of living, a beautiful experience of life itself. And it just goes on and on and on. And it is the gift that we have as being connected to the very truth of our eternal natures. And if you see God as being eternal, I mean, if your definition of God doesn't include eternity, then I would say then it's not God. If you believe in God, but if you believe in anything, you have to at least recognize that there's a perpetual nature to all things, and within that perpetual nature, that is the very essence of God. That is the joy that we experience as knowing that life is going on, regardless of some of the darkness that we may face or some of the darkness that we actually create. And I would say then that the darkness that we create is actually opposite of the eternal youth, because the darkness that we create is the stresses that we create for ourselves and for our communities, for our families, for each other, by creating things that are contrary to that perfect will, that perfect love, that perfect energy that we actually are. So it's a beautiful place if we learn how to sit in the joy. If we learn how to sit in the middle of that of the road. If you look at a cross, there's a central space in that cross, and that's the spot that you want to sit in. It is the energy of perfection, the Christ-like nature, the nirvana of your own being, the expansion of your mind into the greater Christ godly consciousness, which is all love. Now, whatever name you put to it, whatever your tradition, wherever you come from in your path, measure it that way and see if we're not mistaken in understanding that once you're on the path of love, you find yourself in a greater youthful way of living. This I believe because for myself, I can notice the difference in how that is within me. If I feel more love, I feel more alive. I have more energy. I have more creativity. There's more going on in my soul space. In my mind, there's a certain freedom because the love is informing my mind. Now, contrary, when our minds are clouded and the mind is allowed to control the heart, then the heart becomes wicked without our knowing, or our heart is so bad and so tainted that it actually deteriorates the very soul and temple cavity. So love has a way of healing. Love has a way of sustaining our youthfulness. Love provides the buoyancy. Love provides the creativity, the community that continues in a perfect way, in a beautiful way. Even with the mistakes, as we learn to lean on love, as we learn to turn to love, as we learn to love each other, and most importantly, really, as you learn to love the God presence within you, which is the first commandment. When you learn to love the God presence within you, that is the beginning. That is the beginning of the perfect knowledge of wisdom that teaches you how to live correctly. It teaches us all how to do this thing correctly, how to do it right. And there's a great humility, I'd say again, in that, because we can't assume we know everything. And I like to say too, it's sometimes a good idea to just be wrong and rejoice in being wrong sometimes, because it pisses off the ego. You don't have to be in control all the time. You don't have to know all the answers. You can let somebody else shine. Always edify, because love has that quality in it that wants the other person to do very, very well. So in that sense, there's no competition. There's just none of those kinds of factors that enter into our community or into ourselves. And always the greatest battles are with ourselves. So when you find yourself seeking love, when you are purposely going forward with a determination that is beyond anything else that you want to achieve, beyond any other ambition in your soul, in your life, in your mind, in your heart, if you find yourself seeking that, you will be rewarded beyond measure, because in that seeking you find, and in that finding there is peace and a whole plethora of other kinds of blessings that come from the peace itself. And that goes way beyond our understanding of anything else, according to the scriptures, that we could possibly imagine. Isn't that just a beautiful place to sit and be, isn't it? Just a relaxed place to be in life without the stresses that deteriorate the very temple that we're in. It doesn't mean that we're not getting older. You may see lines of wisdom in someone's face. If you look at various cultures, some age more beautifully than others, you might say. It depends on how you look at it. I like to see the road maps of living. sometimes on people's faces. But sometimes I often wonder too, and you can take a look for this for yourself. I can see where the eternal beauty of youth can also be sustained with the right kinds of things that we do, like eating well, drinking pure water, eating pure food, always enjoying life with a particular attitude, staying around children. That's why I'm always kind of dismayed when you see so many of our elders separated from the base family because those elders have so much wisdom and they can impart that wisdom to the rest of the tribe on the downline of the tribe to the very smallest. And the very smallest always maintain a certain buoyancy and joy and creativity of living, a spontaneity of life that reminds us that we were once like that and we really don't have to lose that. I was wondering why we did. Responsibility makes us more aware that we have certain things that we have to do, but I'm always curious as to why we think we have to do it in a way that doesn't still find us buoyant and creative and loving life and spontaneous about a number of things. It's supposed to be, as it is written, that as we get older, there's more wisdom to do life correctly. And therefore, we can teach the young ones how to direct and channel the great spontaneity and joy of life that they come to the planet with. And unfortunately, lose because they look at our faces and see that we don't possess it any longer, and they figure that's how they should become adults. So hopefully we'll be able to impart something a little bit different if we return to the youthfulness of the love of ourselves. And if we're missing that, again, the love of ourselves, that's the point. The love of ourselves is kind of the base point, the foundation. The love of ourselves, of the God presence in us. Let's not get it twisted. This isn't a pride ego trip. It is recognizing that how you are made, you're supposed to rejoice in that, how you've been made. And even with the mistakes, love the mistakes enough that the mistakes can be consumed by the very love that you're giving yourself. Isn't that just beautiful? So you make a mistake, oh my goodness, the wisdom is not to repeat the same mistake again. That's what tells your age. That's what makes you more unique in your space of life, whatever decade you happen to be in. That's the joy of your being, that you have wisdom. And that wisdom is such a light. It's such a beautiful space to just sit and to watch your tribe, the various generations of your tribe, uh, grow also. And perhaps, hopefully, if they're wise enough, can listen to some of the elders and learn from the mistakes that the elders have made so they don't have to make the same ones again. And the sense of eternal youth, by giving obedience to that perfect wisdom of love, becomes a perpetual reality for all generations within all communities. And it changes everything we are, everything we do. God bless you today. I had to make a couple of announcements because I always forget certain kinds of things. And I always like to mention my producer, Dave Griffin, who kind of trains me to do these things right. I also want to give a shout out to my